focus on things that are growing. So today we've got a project to complete. This is my tray of kale. It's ready to be transplanted. It's looking good. It's been hardening off for about 20 days and it's ready to go into the garden. This is my blue kale, and here's my red kale, and this used to be my romaine, but my romaine didn't make it. Most of it did not germinate at all. I think maybe about 5 plants came out of these 10 cells, and I put a lot of seed in, but it just didn't like the conditions, I guess. So I will not be planting romaine, but I've got enough kale to keep me busy. So we're gonna get started with that. These are looking pretty good. Only the strongest have survived. So all of these are ready to be out in nature. So we are going to get these into some grow bags with some soil, and we're gonna get started. All right, since I've got so much to plant, I'm just gonna use my trusty bin here and mix up all of my favorite soils and amendments so that I can get it prepared for my grow bags. There are 2 types of growing materials I'm going to use. I'm going to start with this 5-gallon grow bag, and I also have some of my modified water jug planters that I've made with drainage at the bottom. So I will be using grow bags and plastic containers. I'm just going to get started filling this up with the soil that I just mixed. All right, I think I'm going to stop there. In my last experience with kale, I started them all off in these water jugs, and then I transplanted them into a bigger space, and that's when they started to thrive. So I want to start with them being in a bigger space to thrive to begin with. And I used a 10-gallon grow bag, and I have 2 plants in there, and they're doing fantastic. They've done well this season. So I want to see if I can use this 5-gallon grow bag. Maybe I should put 2, maybe I'll put 3. We'll see what I feel like doing, because I do have a lot of the kale. Okay, so I've decided on 3. So I'm gonna choose 3 of the best looking kale seedlings. I'm gonna start with the blue kale. This is Dazzling Blue, and that is the one that I've grown before. So I'm gonna choose 3 and get started. I'm using my handy little tool that you've seen me use, and here is the first plug. I know that these can get a pretty big root ball on their own, so I'm going to try and separate these just so they have their own room to grow, and hopefully that won't damage the roots too much. I'm checking just to see if there's a single one in here or I don't have to pull them apart. And I think I actually have one, so I'm going to start with that one. Okay, so here's a single one on its own. So let's plop this down into the bag. And I'm burying them a little bit deeper than I did last time, because I know that my stems get really long, especially as you go to harvest some of the kale. So I buried the stem as much as I think is a good idea. And then I'll grab 2 more. And these are the ones that I'm gonna gently pull apart, hopefully, and not damage anything. And last time I waited until they grew a little bit more, or a lot more, before I separated them, but I want these to start off with their own root systems growing separately. Okay, so that is my first bag. I think I have enough soil and enough space for them to grow independently and not get all tangled up. So that is the goal. Next up, we've got a 10-gallon grow bag. You know something? I'm gonna start over. I forgot a step. That's one of the benefits of having a bin of soil nearby. Okay, what I'm gonna do for the 10-gallon grow bag, since it is so big, is I'm gonna put some old cardboard at the bottom. And it's kind of already in small pieces. It doesn't need to be too small. And I'm hoping this will take up some space so that I don't have to use so much soil in this bigger bag. Most plants can do just fine in about 6 inches of soil, 6 to 12 inches, but I don't want to fill this up 12 inches worth of soil. Because we don't have soil here in the garden, we have to buy our soil. So I don't want it to be an unnecessary expense. I've also got paper bags, and these will all break down and just become part of the soil over time, and I'm okay with that. I'm just gonna crumple this up. Okay, so that looks like a pretty good base. And I'll just put soil on top of this inside of the grow bag and it should be fine. And just a note on using cardboard, you might have noticed that it didn't have any tape on it, it didn't have any labels, it didn't have any excess ink on it or writing, so make sure all of those things are not part of the cardboard that you're going to put in your growing medium. All right, so that's all I'm going to use, and I'm going to choose some more seedlings. I think I'll put 4 in here. I think this 10-gallon grow bag can support 4. So hopefully each of these still has enough roots of its own to thrive in the grow bag. So I'm just looking for a perfect seedling that I want to plant. I think I'll go with this one. For this one, I'm just going to take this one off. And I'm not going to use this one. So this one is keeping most of its own roots, which is always a good thing. Okay, and that is bag number 2. Okay, I'm just gonna fill up one of these gallon jugs that I cut in half with some soil. And I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm going to choose a plug. Let's go ahead and choose this one that I already took out. And I'm not going to bother separating these. I want to see how they do on their own, if they grow When they grow a little bit bigger, maybe I'll transplant them like I did my last batch of kale. We are still working with the dazzling blue. We have not even gotten to the red kale yet. Okay, so that was pretty easy. And I'm going to grab another one and rinse and repeat. Planting in these modified pots here is a little bit easier because I'm not separating any of the plants. I didn't last time until they grew a little bit bigger and survived the caterpillars, of course, and then I was able to transplant the survivors. So it's a little bit easier. It takes one step out. Some of these are growing really close together, and we'll just have to see how those do. They should be fine. This one has 3 growing in it, but I'm going to take this one off. Okay, I'm going to move on to my next 10-gallon grow bag and plant some red kale before I run out of soil. So I'm going to do the same thing I did with the other one and fill it with some paper medium first before I put the soil on top. Alright, so let's move on to the red kale and grab some really good specimens. Let's see which ones look the best. Okay, this one here has 3 on it. And I think I will just take this one off right here. And actually, I'm going to separate these so that they can go into the grow bag. And hopefully they will be resilient and grow their roots just fine, even though I kind of just pulled them apart. I'm gonna put 4 in here. I haven't grown red kale before, so I don't know how big their root ball gets, but I think it should be fine if I have at least 4. Maybe I'll go a little crazy and add 5. I'm not sure yet. This is the next one I'm gonna choose, and I'm gonna try and separate this one from these 2. And I'm going to plant this single one into the bag. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. I'm just going to cut this one off. It's not looking as strong as this one that's left, and this one can have all the roots. And I think I'm going to scoot this one over a bit and put a 5th one in the middle. Okay, so we're going crazy and we're putting 5 in this 10-gallon grow bag. But I think it should be fine. So this is what we have. We're gonna set this aside and deal with some in some smaller water jugs. All right, same process as before. I need some soil, and then I'm gonna put some red kale in these pots. Okay, growing people, this is all that is left. We are finally finished with planting out all of our kale, red kale and blue kale. This is what I'm gonna compost. It's almost all empty. I call that a success. So let me show you what everything looks like now that it's been planted. Okay, now that everything's planted, we've got to water every single one of these in. So that's my next task. I'll come back when these are all well watered. Okay, here's the final product. These are as many as will fit on this platform here. I've got to put the other ones somewhere else, but this is the end of the project. I'm just going to do this final step and cover and protect these, and the same thing with the grow bags. So it's a little bit windy still, so I'm going to get my clothespins and pin this in place. Okay, that is all for now. I hope you learned something. I hope you had fun. If you have any questions or comments about growing kale or anything else, leave it down below and we can grow this community. We'll see you in the next video. Until then, grow something good.